name is Wendell Brunious, and these are the New Orleans All-Stars. Miss Caroline Famella on the clarinet, Steve Pistorius on the piano, my old sidekick Richard Moten on the bass back there, Carl Boudreaux on drums, Charlie Halloran on the trombone. We're coming to you from the Big Easy, New Orleans, the birthplace of the great Louis Armstrong. We're going to play a few songs from Armstrong's career, and we hope you enjoy this introduction to Satchmo. Here we go. Louis Armstrong was born August 4th, 1901, in the great city of New Orleans, Louisiana. He came from really tough uprising in a tough neighborhood, and as a result of that, he was put into the colored waif's home of New Orleans way back when he was a kid for firing a gun into the air on New Year's Eve. That's where he would develop playing the cornet at first, and then the trumpet. And I mean, what a break that was for him to actually go to some place where there was a great trumpet teacher and to develop that. As he toured throughout the world, he used this song as his opening song for many, many years, a song from way back from when he was a kid in 1917. This is the great Back Home Again in Indiana. Music that would become known as jazz was developed around New Orleans in the early 20th century. It was an extension of music that they called ragtime music, where musicians infused syncopated rhythms into European quadrilles and songs like that. And it just took the world by storm. In the early part of the 20th century, the great Scott Joplin developed ragtime music as a force. And when he played at the St. Louis World's Fair, it took the world by storm. This song was actually written by the great Irving Berlin, and ragtime had such an influence on him, he called this song Alexander's Ragtime Band. Creole musicians of New Orleans started to infuse the ragtime music with another concept of music from Africa, which is called call and response. That music developed, and they called it the blues, not only an oral tradition, but a musical tradition also. This blues was taken by the great W.C. Handy and written down for the first time. This is a song he called Hesitating Blues, and it was recorded by Louis Armstrong on the record Satch Plays W.C. Handy. soon captured the attention of musicians everywhere. His mentor from New Orleans was the great Joseph King Oliver. And when King Oliver moved to Chicago, he took King Oliver's place in the Kid Ory Band and eventually started traveling on the riverboats up and down the Mississippi River with the great Fate Marable, where he developed more of his reading and solo ability and just bandsmanship. In 1922, the great Joseph King Oliver sent for Louis Armstrong to come to join him in Chicago to play second cornet. Louis developed so much in that band that by 1923, he was uprooting Joe Oliver because he was just making progress that much. Louis moved to New York in 1925, and he started to develop a lot of things. He actually wrote this song and went in a bar one day, and he saw A.J. Piron, and he said, "Man, I'll give you a song if you buy me a drink." And Piron said, "Okay." So Piron bought him a drink. He gave him this song. Became a very popular song. This is a song we called "I Wish I Could Shimmy Like My Sister Kate." This next song, Louis recorded in New York with a few people that had moved up to New York from New Orleans, the great Clarence Williams, and also the greatest clarinet player maybe of all times, the great Sidney Bechet. They recorded this song together, and here's our rendition of it. Everybody Loves My Baby. As can be, blue skies are all that I see. Whenever she makes love to me, I've gotta let it out, 'cause she's my sweetie, can't you guess? Wild about her, I confess. Does she love me? Oh my yes. That's why I've gotta shout that everybody loves my baby, but my baby don't love nobody but me. Nobody but me, oh yes. Everybody wants my baby, but my baby don't want nobody but me. That's plain to see. She's got those Elgin movements, 20 years guarantee. There's no need for improvement. My sweet mama's built for speed. Everybody loves my baby, but my baby don't love nobody but me. Nobody but me. In 1925, Louis Armstrong started to record with his own band, the Hot Five, and eventually the Hot Seven. That band is still influential in jazz today. He eventually started to tour with his Louis Armstrong Orchestra and started recording a lot of different songs. This is one of the songs that he did titled After You've Gone. During that same era, Louis Armstrong recorded this song, but then it would become a signature song for a lady that was known as the last of the Red Hot Mamas. She was the great Sophie Tucker. Here's our rendition of Some of These Days. In 1932, Louis made his first trip to Europe with his big band and spread the gospel of jazz all over. In 1939, he recorded this song with his big band, and here's our rendition of Baby, Won't You Please Come Home.
Oh, baby, won't you please come on? You left your daddy all alone. Well, I've cried in vain. Never no more call your loving name. Swing, when you left, you broke my heart. Well, that don't mean that we should ever part. Let's never part. Every hour of the day you can hear me say, baby, won't you please come home, come on home. Oh, baby, won't you please come home.
In 1940, Louis hooked up with the great Louis Russell and his big band. Louis Russell was a great piano player. And on this particular cut also was the great Sidney Bechet. Here's the song titled Down in Honky Tonk Town. Johnson said one day to his Eliza May, we've been to nearly every place in town. Can you suggest to me some other novelty? We both can go and do the thing up brown. Yes, sweetie said, my dear, there is this place I hear. I got it straight from Mose who brings the clothes. It's honky tonky town, down where the girls are brown. That's where the music flows. Come on, honey, let's go down to honky tonky town. It's underneath the ground. That's where the fun is found. We'll be singing waiters, singing syncopators, dancing to piano played by Mr. Brown. Piano he plays, my dear, he plays it all by ear. You wanna stay here, that music that you hear, even act a monkey, dance until you're funky, down in honky tonk town. Come on, Stevie, come on, Stevie. Don't stand a chance. You got to see the folks get down and mean. They do the T-na-na, and then you know somehow you must be back in old New Orleans. It's gotta be a fad for every girl and lad to wanna go to honky town at night. Each girl he cries to go, and when she spies a boat, she yells out with all her might. Come on, honey, let's go down to honky tonky town. It's underneath the ground. That's where the fun is found. We'll be singing waiters, singing syncopators, dancing to piano played by Mr. Brown. Piano he plays, my dear, he plays it all by ear. You wanna stay here, that music that you hear, even act a monkey, dance until you're funky, down in honky tonk town. In the 1950s, Louis would do a series of recordings with a great singer, the great Ella Fitzgerald. Louis had recorded over 700 songs, which was to become the American Songbook. He and Ella did a lot of these songs together. Here's George Gershwin's Lady Be Good. In 1947, the great Louis Armstrong put together a six-piece band that would spread the gospel of jazz even farther. This song they recorded, which had been recorded around 1923 by the New Orleans Rhythm Kings, but they put their spin on it. This is called Tin Roof Blues. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, Louis Armstrong continued to tour, and he made over 20 films and countless television appearances and radio appearances. He was just the #1 entertainer. In 1964, he recorded this song called Hello, Dolly. And Hello, Dolly went to #1 on the charts for 14 weeks, knocking the Beatles out of first place. A little guy from New Orleans, the great Louis Armstrong. This final song that we're going to do was actually recorded by Louis in 1938, but it had been around New Orleans for a while, because around 1912, the band leader, great trumpet player, Oscar Papacelestin, he said a lady walked up to him in the parade and started to sing into his ear, "Oh, when the saints go marching in." And it was the first time it was played as jazz. But when Louis recorded it, it became an international hit. Here's a song we call the New Orleans National Anthem, "When the Saints Go Marching In." When the saints go marching in, now when the saints go marching in, you know that I want to be right in that number. When the saints go marching in, and when the sun refuses to shine, now when the sun refuses to shine, you know that I want to be in that number. Now when the saints go more, come on, let's swing it, y'all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wendell Brunious. I hope you enjoyed our video. We're just looking forward to getting on the boat and playing for you once again. Anyway, I have a friend, great Tom Hook, who's going to feed me a few questions that people have sent in, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Tom, please.
Our first question comes from Aaron in Stevenage. Aaron asks, which other countries in the world would you say have really good jazz or really good jazz musicians outside America? And can you give some examples?
Oh, of course. Well, we're extensively traveled. We've traveled all over the world, and every place has a good jazz band, at least one. I mean, many good jazz bands. Even when I toured in Cuba, these kids had maybe 3 or 4 CDs, and they were playing great music. And I think it just comes with the interest, and now through the internet and records and videos, television, and all these kinds of things, the message of jazz is much more accessible than it has been ever.
Okay. We have a question from Claudie in San Diego. Claudia says she was on a Viking ship in China, and one evening they went to the Peace Hotel in Shanghai and heard the famous Peace Hotel Jazz Band. She asked if we know about them. She thinks they're still alive. At that time, they were all Chinese men in their 90s. Such an unexpected delight. And she's asking, Wendell, if you will be performing on the Viking, Mississippi.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to performing on the Viking. I've been to Shanghai. I did not see the guys at the hotel, but I know of it, and I don't know if they're still alive. I hope they are.
How many times a week will you be performing on the Mississippi, Wendell? On a weekly basis?
Definitely a weekly basis, because I think I'm going to be the entertainment, like for the first night that the boat goes out. It'll be us, and we're looking forward to it.
We have a comment here from Elizabeth from Bristol in the UK, and she's saying, this is fabulous. Thank you so much. And she asks, how did the band form? Did you know each other before becoming a band?
Some of us knew each other. The bass player, his mother was my junior high school teacher. And so I've known him ever since we were pre-teens. The pianist and I worked together in a show called One More Time in the 80s. And so we've known each other 40 years, you know. The drummer is young. I mean, he was at NOCA when I was doing clinics over there. The trombone player moved here from St. Louis, but he's been a New Orleans jazz fan for all of his life. And the clarinet player, she's from Sweden. And I performed with her many, many times in Sweden. And anyway, we've all come together to make the best jazz band we have.
All right. Here's a question from Helen in Austin, Texas. And Helen says, I find some jazz fantastic to listen to, and other jazz pieces really hard work and unsettling to listen to. She asks, do you classify jazz into subcategories? She says, it's the only type of music that I have an almost binary relationship with.
I understand. I understand 100%. And it's a lot of younger players are very notey. They want to play a lot of notes, and that gets to be difficult to understand. Whereas older players, I'm going to include myself in that, play more melodically, and the melody is very important. So that's much more understandable and pleasant, I'm going to call it, not so challenging.
Could you give her an idea of some of the subcategories of stuff that she might not enjoy as much?
Yeah, well, all right. So some of the stuff you might like, of course, Louis Armstrong, he just defined what jazz really is. Then came like the big band era, Glenn Miller and people like that. And even between that was like the Mills Brothers, and he had music with feeling. But now we're teaching a lot of scales and stuff in kind of manufacturing musicians rather than developing. Just say that.
We have a question here from Hyman in Spokane, Washington. And he asked, do you know many younger original jazz/blues bands that you could recommend? And also ask, where can I listen to your music?
Oh, well, of course, you can listen to me and all of those, like YouTube, of course, and what's this other site, like Pandora, things like that. Since we've been in this pandemic, no one's been really working, so I can't really recommend anywhere to go to hear anybody because we're not really active at this point in time, but soon to be.
I think you have songs on iTunes and on CD Baby.
Yes.
Amazon Music.
There you go.
All that stuff.
All of that. All of those sites.
Yeah.
You can find some stuff with me.
How about some younger original jazz bands you could recommend?
It's a little difficult. Like I said, since this pandemic, but I have a nephew who's a great trumpet player. He led the Preservation Hall Band after I left there, and he's worked with Harry Connick Jr. for many years. His name is Mark Groh, and I think he's got one of the best bands out there for New Orleans jazz.
Here's a question from Emmanuel in Arvada. Emmanuel asks, would you say there is more improv in jazz than in other musical genres?
Yeah, because a lot of it is based on improvisation, and guys want to just play solos. And, like when you hear a song that someone has learned, like off of a piece of paper, and they're reading it, and they can play that exact thing every time. Whereas a jazz band, we seldom ever rely on music, written music. We just play from our hearts and from what the song means to us.
Here's a comment from Jane, and Jane says simply Fabulous with 2 exclamation points. Fabulous.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you. I hope you know what you're listening to. I'm just going to say that.
Here is a question from Linda from the United States. She's asking, where is your group presently playing? She says, I have visited New Orleans many times, and I love it there, especially the jazz venues. I think you might address where you were playing before.
Yeah, that's about right. So since I think it was March 13th was our last regular gig, but I toured with the Preservation Hall Band for about 30 years. And then I stopped touring with them. I just kind of wanted to stay home because it was just very, very taxing on your family and all family life and stuff like that. So, but I still performed at the Preservation Hall. Tom and I, the moderator here, we did many, many jobs together on boats, on different venues. We were all over the place, the hotel lobbies and stuff like that. Any place you wanted good music, we tried to be there. So hopefully, by the time you're ready to visit New Orleans again, we'll be all over the place like that again.
Here's a comment from Madison in Lady Lake, Florida. And she says, I can't wait for this concert. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you,
Madison.
Madison, it's when you said the word Madison, my daughter just had a baby about 7 months ago, and her name is Madison. So, hey, if I seemed a little befuddled at first, I was like, Madison.
She's old enough to type?
She's thank you, Madison. Yeah, we're looking forward to it also.
Here's a comment from Miki in Montclair in the United States. He says, I cannot wait to hear you in New Orleans. He says, I'm taking an extra 2 days after the 14-day cruise in 2022. It's a long wait. And then he goes on to say he will be 90 in 2020 when Viking starts sailing. And he's already booked for that 14-day cruise in September. He says that he grew up with your music in his home in the Netherlands. So,
wow. I had an agent in Wageningen. So maybe you saw me when this guy, his name was Sven Vicht, and he used to book me. And I toured around with Chris Barber and different bands like that. But maybe I did see you in Holland.
Here's a multi-part question from Naomi in University Park. She asks, how did your passion for jazz start?
All right. My father was a great trumpet player and arranger. My mother's family, the Santiago family, were some of the early musicians of jazz. So it was kind of like we had 8 kids in our family. Not everyone is a musician. I mean, everyone played a little bit, but not everyone played professionally. And I got just some opportunities, and did some work accidentally on purpose that made me develop. I was mostly lucky, I think. I'm a business major from college, and my dad thought I'd get a real job one day. But when I was about 3 years old, the original Tuxedo Brass Band recorded, and I'm walking around our backyard. It's just a brass band, and up and down the driveway was 3. And that's one of my first memories. And I just thought, man, it was so exciting. I want to be like these guys. And things have worked out that I'm kind of like them now.
Another excellent part to this question is, Naomi asks, do you have children or young people in your life that you encourage to play jazz?
Of course. I have a son named Brandon who's a great guitarist and plays bass. And I have a son in Minneapolis, plays trumpet. He's doing pretty well. And I have my son, Wendell Jr. Now, you never know where art is going to manifest itself in an individual. He's a visual artist. And just 2.5 weeks ago, I went to the Ogden Museum in New Orleans, and he won Best Picture in there. He did it was a kind of a sculpture rendition of a Picasso thing he was trying to explain to me. I'm not smart enough to understand all of that. But so you never know where art is going to manifest itself in an individual or in your children.
And last part of that question from Naomi was, did you ever hear Louis Armstrong live? And she says, this is great. Thank you so much.
All right. I did not hear Louis play live. Around 1965, Louis Armstrong came to New Orleans to play a concert. And my dad said to my brother and I, my younger brother, he said, man, get dressed. I'm going to take you someplace. All the musicians had planned to go and meet Louis Armstrong at the airport. So I got to see him, and, he touched me on the head and, hey, Pops, but I never heard him play live. But I've heard so many beautiful, beautiful records of him and seen him on film, and he's the absolute greatest, most influential trumpet player, musician, singer, personality. He's number one for my money.
Here's a question from Shelton in the United States. Shelton asks, how often do you practice each day? Do you practice individually and as a band as well? And what are some of your favorite jazz tunes?
All right. The trumpet, you have to practice every day. And I mean, it's like 4 hours or something like that. And still 4 or 5 hours of practice can't make up for a 2-hour gig. Because when you're practicing, you're playing what you want to or what you're able to. Whereas when you're on a gig, you have to play what's demanded of you. So you've got to of course, practice for your own chops. The band, we get together every now and then. We're not maybe all 6 of us. Sometimes just a bass player and Tom and I. We'll play a job together, or the pianist, or Caroline and the clarinet player, and I and the piano and bass. We'll get together and just play, but just to stay abreast of where you've come as a musician. And it's just so much fun just to play.
Here's not a question, but a nice comment from Tiana in San Francisco. She says, this was really interesting. The music was great, and the Q&A was very interesting.
Well, thank you, Tiana. It's we love making people happy. I mean, that's what I look at as my job, not playing the trumpet. I mean, just making people happy. I don't know who thinks of it like that anymore, but I do.
And we have so many great questions, but unfortunately, we only have time for one more. And this is from Barry in London. And Barry says it's a large question, But for those of us who have not so much knowledge of the history of jazz, could you give us a couple of minutes introduction to its history, its origins, how it developed, and any other genre of music it particularly influenced? And he says, thank you, and I look forward to hearing the concert. So
All
you'll
right.
wrap it up with that one, Mr.
I
Brunious?
surely will. All right, Barry. Thank you for asking that to start off with. Jazz kind of began in New Orleans, 1890s. They credit the great Charles Buddy Bolden as being the first trumpet player of jazz. And he wasn't a reader. So when he would play a song, he would play it from memory, and which made it pretty different each time he played it. And he played like a real gut bucket style. He just like old time funky trumpet, and people started to gravitate towards that because it wasn't so prim and proper, like people just kind of liked it. It felt more like relaxed, I'm going to call it. And that music was an extension kind of the ragtime music. I addressed this on that video earlier. And as they incorporated the blues and other things and, little tricks they did on the trumpet, like King Oliver had like coconuts that he would play sounds with, and plunger and mutes and just his hand and different things like that. All of that became jazz. And as it started to develop, and especially after Louis Armstrong came along with all of his talent and his high note chops and his singing ability and the technique he had developed at the call it Waif's home, and it just kind of just kept developing and developing until it is what it is today. And I tell you, thank God for Louis Armstrong, because he took this to the fullest extent that more than anyone ever. We have a little reminder here. The Mississippi programming on Viking.TV will continue for the remainder of this week with special Viking Mississippi appearances planned on Thursday and Friday. So please check it out. We hope to see you soon. Thank you.